I'm Rebecca, 32 years old, and am standing alone in my doctoral graduation gown with my phone shaking in my hand. The text from my mother just came through, and I've read it 5 times, hoping the words will rearrange themselves into something that makes sense. Sorry, honey, your brother's pool party got moved up. We can't make it to your graduation. You understand, right? 8 years of sacrifice, countless sleepless nights in the lab, living on ramen noodles and coffee, taking on crushing student debt, all leading to this single moment. And the 2 seats I reserved for my parents in the third row sit empty. Around me, the auditorium fills with families hugging their graduates, fathers wiping away proud tears, mothers pinning flowers on their children's gowns. I stand frozen with my cap in hand, watching everyone else bask in the love and celebration I thought I'd finally earned. I should have seen it coming. My whole life, I've always come second to my brother, but this time, they crossed a line I couldn't ignore. Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, please hit that like button so I know I'm not alone. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story takes some turns you won't believe. And trust me, you'll want to hear how I finally stood up for myself. Now, let me take you back to where this pattern really began. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, I learned early that my brother Trevor and I occupied very different spaces in our family. Trevor, 29 now, was always the charming one, the athletic one, the outgoing son who could light up a room just by walking into it. Our parents orbited around him like he was the sun, and I was some distant, cold planet they occasionally remembered existed. I have this memory seared into my brain from 8th grade. I spent 3 months working on an advanced chemistry project for the science fair, staying up until midnight on school nights, teaching myself concepts that were years ahead of my grade level. I created a working model demonstrating chemical bonds using materials I bought with money from my babysitting jobs. Meanwhile, Trevor threw together a baking soda and vinegar volcano the night before the fair, the most cliché project imaginable. When the judges awarded me first place and a scholarship to a summer science program, my parents glanced at my blue ribbon and said, "That's nice, honey," before spending the entire car ride home gushing over Trevor's creativity and natural scientific instinct. They framed a photo of Trevor standing next to his volcano. My ribbon went in a drawer. The pattern continued through high school. I was valedictorian, gave the graduation speech, earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university. My parents attended the ceremony, but the entire celebration dinner afterward revolved around Trevor's acceptance to the local community college, a school he'd eventually drop out of after 1 semester. Nobody asked about my speech. Nobody wanted to hear about my scholarship. When relatives called to congratulate me, my mother would say, "Yes, Rebecca did very well, and Trevor's starting college too. We're so proud of both our children," as if our achievements were remotely equivalent. I learned to shrink myself, to minimize my accomplishments, to never expect praise because expecting it only made the disappointment sharper when it inevitably didn't come. 5 years ago, when I received my acceptance letter to one of the most prestigious molecular biology PhD programs in the country, I called my parents with hands trembling from excitement. This was it, I thought. This achievement was so undeniable, so significant, that they'd finally see me. My mother's response was lukewarm at best. "That's nice, honey. That's a long program, isn't it? Will you still have time to visit home for holidays?" My father asked if I was sure I wanted to commit to that much more school. That same week, Trevor announced he was starting a business selling protein shakes and supplements through social media. My parents threw him a launch party, invited 50 people, catered it with expensive food, and gave him $3,000 in startup capital. My PhD acceptance was mentioned in passing during dinner one night, sandwiched between discussions about Trevor's business cards and website design. 3 months before my graduation ceremony, I gathered my courage and called my parents. My voice was careful, measured, trying not to sound too needy or demanding. "My graduation is on May 15th. It's really important to me. Will you be there?" The question hung in the air. weighted with 32 years of being overlooked. My mother didn't hesitate. Of course, sweetheart. We wouldn't miss it for the world. My daughter, the doctor. My father got on the line. I'm so proud of you. I'll take the day off work, I promise. Well, make a whole day of it. For the first time in years, hope bloomed in my chest. Maybe things were changing. Maybe they finally understood what this meant to me. I sent them the date, time, and location via text and email. They confirmed receipt. Over the next 3 months, I reminded them twice more, and each time they reassured me they'd be there. They had it on their calendars. They were looking forward to it. Then, 1 week before my graduation, I saw a message pop up in our family group chat. Trevor had typed, "Epic pool bash at my new place on May 15th. Christening the new house. Parents, you'll be there, right?" My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might vomit. Before I could type anything, my mother had responded with 3 exclamation points. We wouldn't miss it. I stared at my phone, reading the messages over and over. Surely there was some mistake. I called my mother immediately, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. "Mom, May 15th is my graduation day. You promised you'd be there." There was a pause. Then a sigh. The kind of sigh that told me I was being inconvenient. "Oh, honey, I know, but Trevor just bought this house. This party is really important for his business networking. He's inviting potential clients." My voice cracked. "But you promised me. You promised 3 months ago." Another sigh, this one more exasperated. "Can't you just have the university mail you the diploma? It's just a ceremony, Rebecca. You'll get the degree either way. Just a ceremony. 8 years of my life, reduced to just a ceremony." "You promised," I repeated, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "Well, celebrate with you another time. Trevor's party is important. You understand, don't you? You're always so understanding." She hung up before I could respond. I sat on my apartment floor for an hour, understanding with perfect clarity that I would never be as important to them as Trevor was. The truth sat in my stomach like a stone. The morning of May 15th, I woke at 5 a.m. after barely sleeping. I'd spent the night staring at my ceiling, playing out fantasies where my parents would call and say they'd changed their minds. They were coming after all. Trevor's party could wait. My phone remained silent. I got ready alone in my tiny studio apartment, the one I could barely afford on my graduate stipend. I looked at myself in the mirror wearing the doctoral regalia, the heavy hood with the velvet trim that signified my field of study, the cap with the gold tassel. I looked like someone who'd achieved something remarkable. I felt hollow. My roommate from undergrad, Bethany, had offered to attend, even offered to drive 3 hours to be there. I'd told her no, insisting it'd be fine, that my parents were coming. Now I regretted that pride. I checked my phone one more time, no messages. The silence was its own kind of message. I arrived at the auditorium 2 hours before the ceremony started, telling myself I wanted to soak it all in, but really I just couldn't stand being alone in my apartment anymore. I watched other graduates arrive in clusters of joy, surrounded by parents, grandparents, siblings, friends, all carrying balloons and flowers and cameras. One woman near me was crying as her father pinned a corsage on her gown. A man about my age was being hugged by what looked like a dozen family members, all of them wearing shirts with his face printed on them that said, "That's my doctor." Everywhere I looked, there was love made visible, pride made tangible. I felt like I was watching from behind glass, separated from a world I'd never quite been allowed to enter. In the staging area where graduates gathered before processing in, a fellow graduate named Harrison noticed me sitting alone while everyone around us took family photos. "Where's your family?" he asked with genuine curiosity, not cruelty. "They couldn't make it," I said, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. "Oh man, I'm sorry, that's tough." The pity in his eyes made everything worse. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and took deep breaths, trying to hold myself together. I'd worked too hard to fall apart now. I'd walk across that stage with my head high, even if nobody I loved was watching. 20 minutes before the ceremony began, my phone buzzed. For one stupid, hopeful second, I thought maybe they were here. Maybe they'd surprised me. The text was from my mother. "Sorry, honey, your brother's pool party got moved up. We can't make it to your graduation. You understand, right?" I read it 3 times. Moved up. As if the timing was out of their control. As if they were victims of circumstance rather than people making a deliberate choice. A second text came through. This one a photo. My parents standing in Trevor's backyard, both holding colorful cocktails, huge smiles on their faces. My mother was wearing a new sundress, turquoise with white flowers. One Shed bought specifically for today. I knew because Shed told me about it last month, how she wanted to look nice for the photos at my graduation. My father wore the shirt I'd given him for Father's Day 2 years ago, navy blue with "World's Best Dad" embroidered on the chest. They were dressed for celebration, just not my celebration. The ceremony began, and I walked in the processional with hundreds of other graduates, all of us processing to "Pomp and Circumstance," that song that's supposed to make you feel triumphant. I felt numb. When they called my name, Dr. Rebecca Harrison, Ph.D. in molecular biology, summa cum laude. I walked across the stage in a fog. There was applause, scattered and polite, from strangers who clapped for everyone. I scanned the audience one final time, some pathetic part of me still hoping to see them, but of course they weren't there. The university president shook my hand and gave me the leather-bound diploma holder. I posed for the official photo, smile plastered across my face. And in that photo, if you look closely, you can see my eyes are completely dead. After the ceremony ended and the graduates flooded back to their families, I stood by myself near the exit, still holding my diploma, watching reunion after reunion happen around me. My dissertation advisor, Dr. Sheffield, found me in the crowd. "Congratulations, Dr. Harrison. This is such an incredible achievement. Where's your family? I'd love to meet them." I lied smoothly. Years of practice making it easy. "They got held up. Traffic. They'll be so sorry they missed you, Doctor." Sheffield smiled and moved on to other graduates. I walked to my car, climbed into the driver's seat, still wearing my regalia, and sat in the parking lot for over an hour, watching everyone else leave with their families. Restaurants for celebration dinners, going home for parties. I finally pulled out my phone and checked the family group chat, a masochistic impulse I couldn't resist. It was exploding with photos from Trevor's party. My mother had posted 7 pictures, all featuring Trevor, his new house, the elaborate setup with catered food and a bartender. The caption on her Facebook post, which Shed also shared in the family chat, read, "So proud of my son Trevor for this beautiful new house. What an amazing day celebrating with family. #ProudMom, #BlessedFamily, #FamilyFirst." Not one word about my graduation. Not one acknowledgement that this was the day their daughter became Dr. Rebecca Harrison. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, still wearing my graduation gown because taking it off felt like admitting the day was over, like accepting that this was how it had ended. I ordered Chinese takeout, my one splurge, and opened Instagram while I waited for the food to arrive. The first thing I saw was my mother's post, the same one from Facebook, cross-posted with even more photos. 7 different shots of Trevor standing proudly in his backyard, his new house visible behind him, my parents flanking him with arms around his shoulders. The comments were already flooding in. "Such a beautiful family. Trevor looks so successful. You raised an amazing son. Goals." My mother had responded to each comment with heart emojis and thank yous. I scrolled further and found my father's post, a video tour of Trevor's house with my father's voice narrating. "Best day ever with my boy. This is what hard work looks like. So proud." The video had over 100 likes. I felt like I was watching my erasure happen in real time. My biggest achievement dissolved into nothing, while Trevor's mediocre milestone became the only thing that mattered. The extended family had joined in too, validating my parents' choice with every comment and like. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, had commented, "Wonderful party. So glad we could all be there to celebrate Trevor. What a special day." My grandmother, my father's mother, wrote, "Trevor, you make us so proud. What a blessing you are to this family." Cousins I barely spoke to anymore were tagged in photos, all of them raising glasses to Trevor, all of them complicit in my invisibility. I had sent graduation announcements to the entire extended family 2 months earlier, formal cards with my photo in the school's colors, the words "Rebecca Harrison cordially invites you to celebrate her doctoral graduation" printed in elegant script. I'd spent $200 I didn't have on those announcements. Out of 30 family members, 3 had sent cards, and those cards contained generic messages, clearly purchased from the grocery store. Congrats on graduating. No mention of the PhD, no acknowledgement of the magnitude of the achievement. But here they all were, falling over themselves to celebrate Trevor buying a house our parents had funded. Finally, hours after everyone else had posted, one distant cousin named Wade commented on my announcement post from 2 months ago, the one I'd made when I first sent out the invitations. "Congrats on graduating," he wrote. The same words from the greeting cards, generic and obligatory. That single comment, appearing hours after my actual graduation, after hundreds of comments on Trevor's party posts, broke something in me. I sat on my apartment floor with tears streaming down my face, not dignified, silent crying, but ugly, gasping sobs. This was my family telling me exactly what I was worth to them. Nothing. Less than nothing, because nothing would have been neutral, and this was active dismissal. They had chosen to celebrate Trevor and ignore me. Every single one of them had made that choice. Trevor's Instagram story made it worse. Had posted a highlight reel of the party set to music, slow-motion shots of people jumping into his pool, close-ups of the catered food, panning shots of the crowd of people who'd shown up for him. The text overlay read, "Best day ever. Thanks to everyone who came to celebrate my new house with me. Couldn't have done it without my family." Then, several hours later, after most people had gone home, he posted another story. This one a screenshot of our family group chat. I hadn't looked at the chat since that morning. Couldn't bear to. In the screenshot, Trevor had written, "Can't believe everyone showed up. Even got mom and dad to skip something for this." Followed by 3 laughing, crying emojis. Skip something. Had reduced my doctoral graduation to something. A vague inconvenience my parents had chosen to skip. And he thought it was funny. He knew exactly what had done, what they'd done to me, and he was laughing about it. I took a screenshot of his story before it disappeared, some instinct telling me I needed to document this cruelty. At 10 p.m., after stewing in hurt and rage for hours, after finishing a bottle of wine I'd been saving for celebration, I called my mother. She answered on the 4th ring, and I could hear party noise in the background, music and laughter. They were still there, still celebrating. "Did you see Trevor's post?" I asked without preamble. "Oh, honey, don't be dramatic." "Well, celebrate your graduation another time. Maybe next weekend we can take you to dinner." Her voice was loose, happy, drunk on expensive wine and her golden child's success. "I worked 8 years for today," I said, my voice shaking. "Trevor bought a house with Dad's money. You chose his pool party over my doctorate." There was a pause, then a shift in her tone from placating to irritated. "That's not fair, Rebecca. Trevor works very hard at his business. This house represents years of his effort." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Doing what, exactly? Selling supplements on Instagram? How much does he actually make? "That's not the point," my mother snapped. "You know what your problem is, Rebecca. You've always been jealous. Ever since you were little, you've been jealous of your brother." The accusation was so absurd, so perfectly inverted from reality, that for a moment I couldn't speak. "I'm not jealous," I finally said. "I'm hurt that you broke your promise. I'm hurt that my family doesn't care about me." My mother's voice turned cold. "We care about you. We just don't appreciate being manipulated with guilt." "Well, make it up to you. Stop being so selfish." Then she hung up on me. My own mother hung up on me on my graduation day because I dared to express hurt. I sat holding my phone, staring at the ended call, understanding that she genuinely believed I was the problem here, that my hurt feelings were an inconvenience and an attack. 2 weeks after graduation, my parents called and insisted on taking me to dinner. "We want to celebrate you properly," my mother said on the phone, her voice warm and conciliatory, as if the graduation disaster had been a small misunderstanding we'd all moved past. I almost said no. Every instinct told me to protect myself, to stay away, but some pathetic part of me still hoped they'd actually acknowledge what they'd done, maybe even apologize. I agreed to meet them at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place they took clients, not family. When I arrived, they were already seated, and Trevor was with them. Nobody had mentioned Trevor would be there. He wore designer clothes I knew he couldn't afford on his supplement sales, a watch that looked like it cost thousands of dollars, shoes he'd seen in a luxury brand's window display. I wore an outfit from Target's clearance section because my graduate stipend had barely covered rent and food. The contrast between us felt deliberate, like they were rubbing my face in who mattered. The dinner started awkwardly, my parents making small talk about the weather and asking generic questions about my postdoctoral plans. I answered in short sentences, waiting for the other shoe to drop, because I could feel tension thrumming beneath the surface. It dropped halfway through appetizers. My father cleared his throat in that specific way he did when he was about to say something he expected me to object to. "Your mother and I wanted to talk to you about something, and we wanted to do it in person because it's important that we're all on the same page as a family." My stomach sank. Nothing good ever followed that preamble. "We've been helping Trevor financially," he continued, as if this was news, as if their favoritism hadn't been obvious my entire life. "He needs support getting his business off the ground and establishing himself. We believe in investing in our children's futures." The word investing was doing a lot of work in that sentence. "How much?" I asked, my voice flat. My parents exchanged a look, one of those married couple telepathic conversations. My mother answered, "We gave Trevor $50,000 for the down payment on his house." The number hung in the air between us. $50,000. I had graduated with $80,000 in student debt. I'd worked 3 jobs during my PhD just to afford food. I'd skipped meals. I'd worn shoes with holes in them because I couldn't afford new ones. $50,000 could have changed my life. "And we're covering his mortgage for the first year," my father added, as if it was a small detail. "Just until his business becomes more profitable." I did the math in my head. Trevor's mortgage was around $3,000 a month, 12 months. Another $36,000. $86,000 total. I felt dizzy. "What did you give me?" I asked quietly. "For my 8 years of education, what did you give me?" The silence that followed was answer enough, but my father felt compelled to justify it anyway. "You got scholarships, Rebecca. You got a full ride for undergrad, and your PhD was funded through teaching and research assistantships. You didn't need help." The logic was breathtaking in its cruelty. Because I'd worked hard enough to earn scholarships, because I'd been smart enough and driven enough to secure funding, I was punished for my competence by receiving nothing. "I worked 3 jobs during my doctorate," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "I lived on ramen noodles and coffee. I wore the same winter coat for 6 years because I couldn't afford a new one. I ate at the food bank twice a month. I needed help. I begged you for help when my car broke down and I couldn't afford to fix it, remember? You said you couldn't spare the money. But apparently, you had $86,000 for Trevor." My mother's face tightened in that way it did when she was about to make me the villain. "That was your choice, Rebecca. You chose that path. You chose to pursue a PhD that doesn't even pay well. If you'd gone to medical school or law school like we suggested, you'd be making good money by now." There it was, the real issue. My success was the wrong kind of success. Not profitable enough, not prestigious in the way they could brag about. A research scientist wasn't as impressive at dinner parties as a doctor or lawyer. Never mind that my research could potentially save lives, could contribute to human knowledge, could matter. It didn't matter to them, so it didn't matter. Trevor, who'd been silent through this exchange, smirking into his wine glass, finally spoke. "Come on, sis. Don't be bitter. You're a doctor now. You'll make plenty of money eventually. The dismissiveness in his voice, the casual cruelty, made something snap inside me. "What do you make, Trevor?" I asked, leaning forward. "From your supplement business. What do you actually make?" He shifted uncomfortably. "That's not the point. No, tell me. Because I make $55,000 a year as a postdoctoral researcher. It's not much, but I earned it through my work." "What do your supplement sales bring in annually? Actual profit after expenses?" My father cut in sharply. "That's enough, Rebecca." But I was done being silenced. "He makes maybe 20,000 if he's lucky, doesn't he?" "Probably less. You gave him $86,000 to subsidize his failing business while I struggled to eat. Explain to me how that's fair." My mother's facade cracked, and the truth came spilling out. "Your brother needs more support, Rebecca. He's not as capable as you are. He doesn't have your advantages." The admission hung between us, shocking in its honesty. They'd given up on Trevor ever succeeding on his own merits, so they'd tried to buy him success. Meanwhile, I succeeded despite them, received nothing, and was expected to be grateful for the opportunity to struggle. So, am punished for being capable. I said slowly, understanding crystallizing. "I'm punished for not needing you because I worked hard enough not to need you." My mother reached across the table like she was going to take my hand, but I pulled away. "We're not punishing you. We're helping your brother. There's a difference." "No," I said, standing up. "There isn't. I worked myself to exhaustion for 8 years. I graduated top of my program. I published papers that got international attention. And you couldn't even show up to my graduation. You threw a party for Trevor's house, a house you bought him, on the same day you promised to celebrate me, and you don't even think you did anything wrong." My mother's face flushed with anger. "We said we're sorry about missing the graduation. What more do you want?" "You're not sorry," I said, grabbing my purse. "You're making excuses. There's a difference." Trevor scoffed. "God, you're such a drama queen. This is why nobody wants to deal with you." I looked at him, really looked at him. This 30-year-old man-child who'd never worked for anything. Who'd never had to because mommy and daddy fixed everything, and I felt something like pity mixed with contempt. My father's voice stopped me as I turned to leave. "If you walk out of this restaurant right now, don't expect us to keep trying with you. We're done chasing after you, trying to make you happy when you're determined to be miserable." The threat was clear: submit or be cut off. I'd spent 32 years trying to earn their love, trying to be good enough, and it was never going to happen. "I'm not asking you to chase me," I said quietly. "I'm asking you to see me. You never have. You never will." I walked out of that restaurant, and I didn't look back. In my car, I sat shaking with adrenaline and grief, understanding that they'd orchestrated this dinner not to celebrate me but to justify their choices. They'd brought Trevor as backup, as a united front, and ambushed me with information designed to make me accept the unacceptable. They wanted me to smile and nod and be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they deigned to throw my way, while they poured money and resources into my brother. The calculation in it, the deliberate cruelty, was worse than simple neglect. This was active, intentional mistreatment, and they expected me to call it love. The day after the disastrous restaurant confrontation, my phone started ringing before I'd even had my morning coffee. Aunt Patricia called first, her voice tight with disapproval. "Rebecca, your mother is very upset. She called me last night crying about how you embarrassed her at dinner in front of Trevor. What were you thinking, making a scene like that in public?" I took a breath, trying to stay calm. "Did she tell you why I was upset? Did she mention that they gave Trevor $86,000 while I struggled through my doctorate eating at food banks?" There was a pause. Then Patricia sighed like I was a difficult child. "Money isn't everything, Rebecca. Your parents are doing what they think is best for both of you. Trevor is more sensitive than you are. He needs more support. You've always been the strong, independent one. You should be grateful they raised you to be self-sufficient instead of making yourself into a victim." The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost questioned my own reality. Almost. "I'm not playing victim," I said carefully. "I'm hurt that they broke their promise about my graduation. I'm hurt that they funded Trevor's life while I was drowning. Those are reasonable feelings. Patricia's voice hardened. Still, you shouldn't have made a scene at a nice restaurant. Trevor is going through a difficult time adjusting to homeownership. The last thing he needed was his sister attacking him over money. Your parents are disappointed in how you handled this. You owe them an apology. I hung up without responding. Within an hour, my cousin Kristen texted me. Heard you had a meltdown at dinner. That's not cool. Trevor's been working really hard on his business and his house. He doesn't deserve you throwing his success in his face just because you're bitter. I stared at the text, understanding what had happened. My mother had called everyone in the family, spinning the story to make me look unhinged and Trevor look like a victim. Shed weaponized the family against me. By mid-afternoon, Trevor had posted on Facebook. The post was a masterpiece of passive aggression, vague enough to have plausible deniability but clearly directed at me. Some people can't handle when others succeed. Family should support family, not tear each other down. Grateful for the people in my life who genuinely want to see me happy. Praying for those who carry bitterness in their hearts. The comments section filled within minutes. My mother commented, "So proud of you for taking the high road, son. Your maturity and grace shine through even when others try to bring you down." Several aunts and uncles liked her comment. My father commented, "That's my boy. Stay positive. Success is the best response to jealousy." Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years chimed in with support for Trevor. Wade wrote, "Some people just can't be happy for others. Real family lifts each other up." The subtext was obvious to anyone who knew our family dynamics. I was the jealous, bitter sister trying to ruin Trevor's happiness. He was the gracious, successful son rising above my pettiness. Trevor's girlfriend Amber, who I'd met exactly twice and who knew nothing about our family history, posted an Instagram story clearly aimed at me. A photo of her and Trevor looking happy, with text overlay reading, "When family drama gets toxic, remember who really has your back. Stand by your man. Real recognizes real. Cut off the negativity." She tagged Trevor, and he reposted it with a heart emoji. The public nature of their attacks felt coordinated, like they'd strategized how to paint me as the villain in a narrative they controlled. Every post, every comment, every like was a brick in the wall they were building around their version of events, and I was trapped on the outside, voiceless. That evening, I received an email from my mother. The subject line read, "We need to talk about your attitude." I opened it with hands already shaking, bracing for impact. The email was long, detailed, and devastating. She'd written a revisionist history of my entire childhood, reframing every memory to cast me as the villain and Trevor as the perpetual victim of my jealousy. The science fair incident where I'd won and Trevor hadn't? You always made Trevor feel intellectually inferior. Your constant need to prove you were smarter created a hostile environment where he felt he couldn't succeed. My high school valedictorian speech? You used your platform to overshadow Trevor's accomplishments. The entire evening became about you when it should have been a celebration for both of you graduating. My PhD acceptance? You barely acknowledged Trevor's business launch, making it clear you thought his path was less worthy than yours. The email went on for 3 pages, detailing every perceived slight I'd supposedly committed against Trevor, every moment where my success had allegedly made him feel small. She accused me of having always resented Trevor's natural charisma and social skills, and compensating by throwing academic achievements in his face. She called me cold, ungrateful, and incapable of genuine happiness for others. The email concluded with an ultimatum that took my breath away. If you cannot be happy for your brother and support this family without creating drama and division, then perhaps you need to take some time away from us. When you're ready to apologize to Trevor, to your father, and to me for your behavior, and when you're ready to be a supportive sister and daughter, you can reach out. Until then, we think it's best if you give us some space. We love you, but we won't tolerate this toxicity. They were cutting me off, and they were making it my fault. I saved the email, screenshot it, backed it up in 3 places. If they were going to rewrite history, I needed evidence of their version to prove what they'd done. 3 weeks after the restaurant disaster, I received an email that made my heart leap. Biogenesis, a prestigious biotech firm in San Francisco, wanted to interview me for a research director position. This was my dream job, the kind of position people with twice my experience competed for. The salary was twice what I made now, and it came with a research budget, a team, and the resources to do work that actually mattered. The position was across the country from my family, which suddenly felt like a feature rather than a bug. Maybe distance would give me the freedom to finally build a life unencumbered by their toxicity. The interview process was rigorous, 3 rounds over 2 weeks, and by the end, I knew I'd done well. The final interviewer, Dr. Montgomery, practically told me the job was mine, pending reference checks. They asked for 5 references. I provided 3 professors who'd supervised my doctoral work, my postdoctoral advisor, and, in a moment of hopeful stupidity, my father. He was a retired electrical engineer, well respected in academic circles, and I thought having a family reference would demonstrate personal stability. I thought maybe, despite everything, he'd support my career, even if he couldn't support me emotionally. I thought wrong. 1 week later, I received a brief email from Biogenesis. Thank you for your interest in the research director position. After careful consideration and thorough reference checks, we have decided to move forward with other candidates. We wish you the best in your job search. The rejection was bewildering. Dr. Montgomery had practically offered me the position. My academic references were glowing. What had changed? I called Dr. Montgomery directly, bypassing the HR department. I'm confused, I said, keeping my voice professional despite the panic clawing at my throat. I thought the interview went well. Can you give me any feedback on what I could improve for future applications? There was a long pause. Dr. Montgomery was a kind woman, and I heard reluctance in her voice when she finally spoke. Off the record, Rebecca, your academic references were exceptional. Your research portfolio is outstanding. You're clearly brilliant at what you do. She paused again. However, one of your personal references raised some serious concerns about your interpersonal skills and your ability to work collaboratively in a team environment. There were mentions of ongoing family conflicts that suggested you might bring personal drama into a professional setting. Given that this position requires managing a team and interfacing with multiple departments, we felt we couldn't take the risk. My blood ran cold. Which reference? I asked, though I already knew. I can't disclose specific details. Dr. Montgomery said carefully, but it was a family member. They seemed genuinely concerned about you, which is why we took the feedback seriously. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I was rooting for you. After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone, trying to process what had happened. My father had sabotaged me, deliberately, maliciously. Had taken a reference call about my dream job and told them I was difficult, dramatic, and would bring personal problems to work. Had cost me this opportunity, this escape, this future, and had done it to punish me for standing up for myself at that dinner. I called him immediately, too angry to care about strategy or composure. Did Biogenesis call you for a reference? I asked the second he answered. There was a beat of silence. Then his voice came through cold and unapologetic. Yes, I told them the truth about your recent behavior. What truth? I demanded. That you've been causing significant problems in your family. That you might bring that instability into a workplace. That you have difficulty accepting feedback and tend to create drama when you don't get your way. Each word was a knife. You cost me my dream job, I said, my voice shaking with rage. You deliberately sabotaged my career. My father's voice remained maddeningly calm. I gave an honest assessment of your current mental state. Maybe if you weren't so difficult, I would have had better things to say. Consider it a lesson. Actions have consequences, Rebecca. Consequences for what? I shouted. For being hurt that you missed my graduation? For calling out your financial favoritism? For not letting you treat me like garbage without complaint? Consequences for disrespecting your mother and brother, he said sharply. For prioritizing your own feelings over family harmony. For refusing to apologize when you were clearly in the wrong. You want to act like we're the problem? Fine. But you'll find that bridges, once burned, are hard to rebuild. When you're ready to be part of this family again, on our terms, we can discuss me helping your career. Until then, you're on your own. The threat was explicit. Apologize, submit, let them define reality, or head continue to sabotage any opportunity I tried to build. You're never giving me a reference again, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. I'll make sure every application I submit notes that my family is not to be contacted. My father laughed, actually laughed. Good luck explaining that to employers. Please don't contact my family because they'll tell you the truth about me. That will go over well. He hung up. I sat on my apartment floor, phone clutched in my hand, and for the first time understood the full extent of their willingness to hurt me. This wasn't passive neglect or misguided favoritism. This was active sabotage. My father had weaponized my career, the one thing he'd built entirely on my own merit, and had done it casually, without remorse, as a teaching tool. The message was clear: comply, or be destroyed. They would use every resource, every connection, every piece of leverage they had to force me back into the role they'd assigned me. The invisible daughter who existed to make Trevor look good by comparison. The weeks following the job sabotage were the darkest of my life. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air but finding none. Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake until 3 or 4 in the morning, my mind spinning through every interaction with my family, reanalyzing every memory, wondering if I was crazy, if I was the problem, if maybe they were right and I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too fundamentally broken to deserve love. I stopped eating properly, lost 15 pounds I didn't have to lose, wore the same sweatpants for days at a time because getting dressed felt like climbing a mountain. At work, I made mistakes I'd never made before, small errors that my supervisor noticed. My hands shook when I pipetted samples. I had a full panic attack in the lab bathroom, hyperventilating so badly that a colleague had to sit with me until I could breathe normally. My supervisor, Dr. Ellen, called me into her office. She was gentle but firm. "Rebecca, I'm worried about you. Your work has always been impeccable, but lately, you seem unfocused. Is everything all right?" I couldn't tell her the truth, couldn't admit that my family had declared war on me and I was losing, so I made vague statements about stress and personal issues. "Doctor," Ellen looked at me with concern that felt both comforting and humiliating. "Take some time off. A week, 2 weeks, whatever you need. Get some help. Talk to someone. Your mental health is more important than any experiment." The fact that my family's abuse was now affecting my work, the one area of my life where I'd always excelled, where I'd always felt competent and valued, made everything worse. They weren't just taking my family from me. They were taking my identity, my sense of self, the foundation I'd built my entire adult life upon. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Hammond, who took my insurance and had an opening. In our first session, I cried for 45 minutes straight, ugly crying, the kind where you can't catch your breath, where your face swells up and your eyes turn red and you look like you've been beaten. Dr. Hammond handed me tissues and waited. When I finally calmed down enough to speak, I told her everything. The graduation, the money, the sabotage, the gaslighting, the rewriting of history, the family alliance against me. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said something that stopped me cold. "You know this is abuse, right? What you're describing is a pattern of systematic emotional abuse and scapegoating." I'd never used that word before. Abuse felt like something that happened in other families, to other people. My family wasn't abusive. They were just distant, cold, playing favorites. But Dr. Hammond was insistent. "Rebecca, they've isolated you, gaslit you, sabotaged your career, and enlisted your extended family to reinforce a false narrative where you're the villain. That's abuse." During this vulnerable, broken time, when I was questioning my own sanity and considering whether it would be easier to just apologize, to submit, to become whoever they wanted me to be if it meant ending this war, I made the mistake of reaching out to my cousin Lauren. Lauren was 2 years older than me, and we'd been close, growing up, spent summers together, told each other secrets, were more like sisters than cousins. If anyone would understand, I thought, it would be Lauren. I sent her a series of long text messages, pouring out my heart, explaining everything that had happened, asking for her perspective, desperate for someone in the family to validate my reality. She responded with sympathy, with outrage on my behalf, with promises that she'd talk to my mother, that she'd help mediate, that family shouldn't treat family this way. 2 days later, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was icy with rage. "I can't believe you're trying to turn family members against us, spreading lies and trying to make us look like villains. Lauren forwarded me your messages, Rebecca. She's appalled by how you're trying to manipulate people with your twisted version of events." My stomach dropped. Lauren had screenshot our private conversation, every vulnerable word I'd written, and sent it to my mother. The betrayal was staggering. I called Lauren immediately. "Why did you send my messages to my mom?" Lauren sounded defensive, caught. She asked me if you'd been talking to me about the family stuff. I couldn't lie to her, Rebecca. She's my aunt. What was I supposed to do? Not betray my confidence. I said, my voice breaking. "I trusted you." Lauren sighed, annoyed. "You're making this into a bigger deal than it is. If you weren't saying anything wrong, you wouldn't care who saw the messages. The fact that you're upset proves you know you're in the wrong here." The circular logic made my head spin. She hung up, and I was alone again. The third betrayal came from an unexpected source. Trevor's girlfriend Amber, who I'd blocked on all social media after her passive-aggressive posts, created a fake Instagram account under a neutral name and requested to follow me. I was so desperate for any human connection, so isolated and lonely, that I accepted the follow request without checking carefully. Over the next week, Amber screenshot every single post and story I made. I'd posted a photo of myself at a coffee shop near campus, trying to maintain some semblance of normal life, forcing myself to leave my apartment. The coffee was free, given to me by a barista who was a former student and who noticed I looked like death. But in the photo, I was smiling. The coffee was in a nice cup. The sunlight looked pleasant. Amber took that screenshot and several others showing me at work, at the library, going about my life, and compiled them into a narrative that I was clearly fine and living it up while crying poor and playing victim. She shared these screenshots in the family group chat I'd been removed from, but my cousin Wade, feeling guilty perhaps, forwarded them to me with a message. "Just thought you should know what's being said." The screenshots showed my mother's commentary. "Look at her, going to expensive coffee shops and enjoying herself. She's clearly fine. All that drama about struggling and being hurt was just for attention. She wanted us to feel guilty, but she's living her best life." The fact that one photo of me attempting to function like a normal human being was being used as evidence that I'd fabricated my pain, that my hurt wasn't real, that I was some master manipulator, orchestrating a campaign against my innocent family, made me feel like I was losing my grip on reality. Was I crazy? Was I making everything bigger than it was? Maybe they were right. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I should just apologize and let it all go. I was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down, seriously considering whether it would be easier to just give up, to quit my postdoc, to move back home, to become the obedient, invisible daughter they wanted, to accept scraps of affection and call it love. Because at least then I wouldn't be alone. At least then the war would be over. I sat on my apartment floor with a bottle of sleeping pills in my hand, not planning anything, just holding them, thinking about how tired I was, how much easier it would be to just stop fighting. My phone rang. It was Miranda, a friend from college I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Miranda's voice was bright and warm, oblivious to my crisis. "Rebecca, oh my God! I just saw your graduation announcement on Facebook from a few months ago. I can't believe I missed it. Congratulations, doctor, we need to celebrate. When can I take you out?" I burst into tears, couldn't help it, and the whole story came pouring out. Everything. The graduation betrayal, the money, the sabotage, the gaslighting, the isolation, all of it. Miranda listened without interrupting, and when I finally ran out of words, she said something I desperately needed to hear. Rebecca, your family sounds toxic. Like, genuinely, clinically toxic. Nothing you've described is normal. Nothing you've described is your fault. You know that, right? For the first time in months, someone was telling me I wasn't crazy. They've made me feel like I'm the problem, I said, my voice small. Like if I was just less sensitive, less dramatic, more grateful, everything would be fine. Miranda's response was immediate and fierce. No. Hell no. You earned a doctorate. You're literally one of the smartest people I've ever met. You worked your ass off for 8 years, and your family couldn't be bothered to show up for 3 hours to watch you walk across a stage. They're not upset because you're sensitive. They're upset because you stopped pretending their treatment of you was acceptable. That's not sensitivity. That's self-respect. Something in me shifted. Miranda continued, they sound intimidated by you, honestly. You succeeded without their help, and that makes them look bad, so they're punishing you for it. Classic narcissistic family dynamics. Miranda insisted on driving 3 hours to see me that weekend. She arrived with takeout, wine, and a fierce determination to remind me who I was before my family had spent months tearing me down. She also brought her friend Jordan, who she introduced as a family therapist. Over dinner in my tiny apartment, I told Jordan everything. She listened with the professional attention of someone who'd heard similar stories before, and when I finished, she nodded slowly. This is textbook scapegoating. In dysfunctional family systems, there's often a golden child who can do no wrong and a scapegoat who gets blamed for everything. You're the scapegoat. Your brother is the golden child. Your parents have assigned you these roles, probably since childhood, and every interaction reinforces the dynamic. Jordan explained family systems theory, how some families require a villain to maintain their own sense of righteousness, how high-achieving scapegoats are often targeted because their success threatens the family's narrative. You make them look bad by comparison, Jordan said gently. Not because you're trying to, but because your achievements highlight their failures as parents. Instead of being proud, they're threatened. So they diminish you, sabotage you, rewrite history to make you the problem. It's not about you. It's about their own insecurity. For the first time, I had a framework to understand what had happened to me. I wasn't defective. The system was defective. Jordan's next words changed everything. You need to document everything. If this escalates further, you'll need evidence. Screenshots, emails, texts, everything. Build a case file. That night, the 3 of us sat in my living room, and I showed them everything I'd saved. Trevor's mocking Instagram stories, my mother's 3-page accusatory email, screenshots of the family group chat attacking me, evidence of my father's referenced sabotage. Jordan reviewed it all with a clinical eye. This is abuse. Coordinated, systematic abuse. You need to protect yourself. Miranda, always practical, asked, what's the worst they could do? We made a list. Show up at my workplace. Sabotage future job opportunities. Spread lies to professional contacts. Contact my friends. Try to access my finances. The list was sobering. You need to cut them off completely, Jordan said. Block them everywhere. Change your number if you have to. Document everything. If they escalate, get a lawyer involved. The next day, I met another ally. Jasmine, a colleague in my department, pulled me aside after a lab meeting. Are you okay? She asked quietly. You've seemed really off lately. I hesitated, but something about Jasmine's directness made me trust her. Family stuff, I said vaguely. Jasmine nodded. My family disowned me 5 years ago. Best thing that ever happened to me. She told me her story. Shed immigrated from the Philippines for graduate school. Her family back home expected her to send money constantly, to financially support parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone. When Shed explained she could barely support herself on a graduate stipend, when Shed said no to sending thousands of dollars she didn't have, they'd cut her off completely. Called her selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace to the family. I thought it'd die from the guilt and loneliness, Jasmine said. But then I built my own family. Friends who became sisters. A mentor who became like a mother. A community that actually valued me. She introduced me to her chosen family over the following weeks. A group of people who'd all, for various reasons, cut off toxic blood relatives and built something better. They welcomed me with open arms. No judgment, no demands, just genuine kindness. For the first time in my life, I understood that family wasn't just biology. Family was choice. Miranda, Jordan, and Jasmine became my support team, my strategy council, my lifeline. We met at my apartment one evening, the four of us sitting on my worn-out couch, and Jordan laid out the likely scenario. They're going to escalate. Scapegoats who refuse to submit always face escalation. They'll try to force you back into line. You need to be prepared. We war-gamed possibilities. They might show up at my workplace. So I alerted building security and my supervisor. They might contact my professional connections. So I preemptively reached out to colleagues and explained vaguely that I was dealing with family harassment. They might spread rumors, so I documented everything and prepared to defend myself with evidence if needed. Miranda asked the question that mattered most. What do you want? Not what they want. Not what's easiest. What do you want? I thought about it, really thought about it for the first time. I want them to stop hurting me, I said slowly. I want them to acknowledge what they did. I want them to see me. Jordan shook her head gently. They're never going to give you that, Rebecca. Narcissistic families don't apologize. They don't see their scapegoats as fully human. You're a role to them, not a person. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can move on. The grief of that realization was profound. I would never have the parents I deserved, but I could stop waiting for them to change. I could build something else. 2 months after the restaurant disaster, I made a decision that would change everything. My grandmother's 80th birthday party was approaching. A big family gathering my parents were hosting. I hadn't been invited, of course. It'd been erased from family events, removed from group chats, unpersoned in every way that mattered. Miranda thought this was good, told me to stay far away from people who hurt me, but I knew how this worked. They'd use my absence as more ammunition, more proof that I was the problem, the ungrateful daughter who couldn't even show up for her own grandmother's birthday. Jordan had a different suggestion. Write a letter. Document your side. Send it to the entire extended family. Take control of the narrative before they twist your absence into another weapon. I spent 2 weeks writing that letter. I revised it dozens of times. Had Jordan and Miranda read it. Made sure every word was measured, factual, impossible to dismiss as hysteria. I started with the graduation, detailing the promise my parents made and broke. I included the timeline, 3 months of confirmations, then the text on graduation day. I attached a screenshot of Trevor's Instagram story where Head mocked my graduation, where Head bragged about getting our parents to skip something for his party. I detailed the financial favoritism, not with emotion but with numbers. $86,000 to Trevor, 0 to me. Despite my 8 years of struggle, I included excerpts from my mother's email, the one where she'd rewritten our entire history to make me the villain. I documented my father's sabotage of my job reference, explaining how Head deliberately damaged my career as punishment for standing up for myself. The letter was 5 pages long, single-spaced, and it ended with a statement that Jordan helped me craft. I will no longer accept being treated as less than human. I will not apologize for existing, for achieving, for having feelings, or for expecting basic respect. I love my family, but I love myself more. I need distance from this toxicity to heal. I wish you all well, but I cannot continue to participate in a system that requires my diminishment for others' comfort. If you've read this and wondered why you never heard my side before, ask yourself who controlled the narrative and why. I attached screenshots of everything, created a Google Drive folder with evidence, included the link, then I sent it to every single member of my extended family via email and Facebook message so they couldn't claim they hadn't seen it. And then, with my heart pounding, I made the letter a public Facebook post. Within an hour, my phone exploded. My mother called 12 times in a row. I didn't answer. My father sent a string of increasingly furious texts. How dare you air our private family business to the world? You've embarrassed us. You've humiliated your brother. This is unforgivable. Delete that post immediately, or you will regret it. Trevor's texts were simpler. You're insane. Everyone sees it now. You just proved everything we said about you, psycho bitch. I blocked all three of them, hands shaking but determined. The messages from extended family came in waves. Some were exactly what I expected. Aunt Patricia sent a scathing message about my betrayal, my cruelty, my attention-seeking. Wade called me a disgrace. But then, other messages started arriving. Cousin Melissa, who I'd barely spoken to in years, called me. I had no idea they treated you like this. I'm so sorry. Your mom always made it sound like you were the difficult one, but reading your letter, seeing the evidence, oh my God, Rebecca, this is abuse. I'm so sorry we didn't see it. My Uncle Richard, my father's brother, sent an email. Your father called me this morning and asked me to send you a message condemning you and telling you you're out of the family. I told him I can't do that. I read your letter. I saw the screenshots. You've been treated unfairly, and am ashamed I didn't notice before. I'm sorry. Several cousins reached out privately, not willing to publicly go against my parents but wanting me to know they believed me. They'd seen the favoritism. They were sorry. The validation felt like oxygen after nearly drowning. I wasn't crazy. Other people saw it too. The truth was out, and my family couldn't control the narrative anymore. My Facebook post went semi-viral, shared by friends of friends, then by complete strangers who saw themselves in my story. The comments section filled with hundreds of messages. This happened to me too. Scapegoat solidarity. Your family is toxic. You deserve better. I cut off my parents 3 years ago and it saved my life. Stay strong. Some comments were critical. People who believed family drama should stay private. People who thought I was airing dirty laundry inappropriately. But the overwhelming majority were supportive. A chorus of voices telling me I wasn't alone. A local blog that focused on family dynamics and mental health reached out asking if they could interview me. I declined, not ready for that level of exposure. But the fact that my story had resonated enough to be noticed felt significant. Trevor deleted his mocking Instagram stories, but it was too late. I'd screenshot everything, and those screenshots were now public. My mother's friends started asking her questions, poking holes in her victim narrative. Someone I never identified sent my mother's employer, a middle school where she worked as a guidance counselor, a link to my post and the evidence. The school board called her in for a meeting. How could a guidance counselor who treated her own daughter with such documented cruelty be trusted with vulnerable students? She wasn't fired, but she was reprimanded, put on a performance improvement plan, required to attend professional development on family systems and bias. My father's reputation in his engineering community took a hit. Colleagues who'd respected him started questioning his judgment. Karma, it turned out, was real. I took Jordan's advice and went full no contact. I blocked my parents and Trevor on every platform, every app, every possible avenue of communication. I changed my phone number and gave the new one only to people I trusted. I made all my social media private. Through a friend of Miranda's who was a lawyer and did pro bono work for domestic abuse survivors, I had a cease and desist letter sent to my parents and Trevor. The letter was clear. Any further contact, any interference with my career, any harassment of any kind, and I would pursue legal action, including a restraining order. My father tried to reach me through my work email one more time. A long message about how I'd destroyed the family, how I was going to regret this, how I'd be nothing without them. I forwarded it to HR, documented it, and sent a copy to the lawyer. HR contacted my father directly and told him that any further attempts to contact me through work channels would result in the university pursuing legal action for harassment. The communications stopped. 6 months after my graduation, after 6 months of silence from my family, after 6 months of therapy and healing, and building a life without them. I got an email from Dr. Montgomery at Biogenesis. Rebecca, I hope this message finds you well. Something happened recently that made me think of you, and I wanted to reach out. Someone on our hiring committee saw your Facebook post about your family situation. We had a conversation about the reference we received from your father and realized we may have made an error in judgment. We'd like to reconsider your application if you're still interested in the position. I read the email 3 times, not believing it. They were offering me a second chance. The interview process was shorter this time, a formality really. I provided different references, all professional, all glowing. 2 weeks later, they offered me the job. Research Director, Biogenesis San Francisco, $120,000 a year, full benefits, my own lab, my own team, my dream job, and it came with 3,000 miles of distance from my toxic family. Moving to California felt like being reborn. Miranda helped me pack up my entire life, drove with me across the country, sang off-key to road trip playlists, and reminded me that this was the beginning, not the ending. Jasmine flew out for my first week to help me settle in, to make sure I didn't spend my first nights in a new city alone. My new colleagues welcomed me warmly. I made friends quickly, people who valued my work, who celebrated my ideas, who treated me like I mattered. I started dating someone I met through work, a kind man named Daniel who listened when I told him about my family and said, with genuine horror, "That's abuse. You know that's abuse, right?" I was learning to accept it, learning to use that word without flinching. 1 year after my graduation, I celebrated my first anniversary at Biogenesis by publishing my first major paper as lead researcher in a prestigious journal. My work was getting international attention. I was building something that mattered. I threw myself a party, invited my new friends, my chosen family. Miranda flew out, surprised me by showing up at my door with balloons and champagne. Jasmine Video, called from the East Coast, toasted me through the screen. My colleague Adrian, who had become a close friend, asked me during the party, "Did your family ever apologize?" I didn't even have to think about it. No, and I don't need them to anymore. That was growth. That was freedom. I realized something profound standing in my beautiful San Francisco apartment surrounded by people who'd chosen to love me, who showed up for me, who celebrated my success instead of resenting it. I'd spent 32 years trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. I'd contorted myself, dimmed my light, swallowed my hurt, and accepted crumbs, all because I believed family was supposed to matter. Blood was supposed to be thicker than water. Parents were supposed to love their children unconditionally. But love isn't unconditional. Real love requires action. And on my graduation day, when it mattered most, my blood family showed me exactly who they were. They showed me what I was worth to them. And I finally believed them. My parents chose my brother's pool party over my doctorate. That choice told me everything I needed to know. But I made a choice too. I chose myself. I chose my dignity. I chose a life where I'm celebrated, not tolerated. I chose people who show up. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, and sometimes you have to take yourself out of the trash. I did the latter, and it saved my life. I'm Dr. Rebecca Harrison now, and nobody can take that from me. I earned this title through blood, sweat, tears, and years of refusing to give up, even when everyone told me I was asking for too much, being too sensitive, causing too much trouble. I earned this life, and I did it without them. Maybe that's the success that scares them the most. To anyone watching this who's in a similar situation, who feels invisible in their own family, who's been told they're too much or not enough, who's watched their achievements get dismissed while mediocrity gets celebrated, I want you to hear this. You are not too sensitive. You are not asking for too much. You deserve people who show up for you. You deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated. You deserve parents who are proud of you, siblings who support you, a family that sees you. And if your blood family can't give you that, you have permission to build your own family. You have permission to walk away. You have permission to choose yourself. It gets better. I promise you, it gets better. The grief is real, and you have to feel it, have to mourn the family you deserved but never got. But on the other side of that grief is freedom. On the other side is a life where you matter, where your achievements are celebrated, where you're surrounded by people who actually love you. It's worth it. You're worth it. I'm living proof. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the scapegoat in your family? Have you ever had to choose between your own well-being and family expectations? Drop your story in the comments. Let's build a community of people who understand. And please, hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe so you don't miss future stories about standing up for yourself and breaking toxic cycles. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that they're not crazy, they're not alone, and they deserve better. Your support means everything, and it helps this message reach people who need it. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for seeing me when my own family couldn't. To everyone who's chosen themselves over toxicity, I'm proud of you. To everyone still trying to earn love from people who won't give it, I see you, and you deserve better. May you all find your chosen family. May you all know what it feels like to be truly celebrated. You deserve that and so much more.